You just started a new podcast, Brand New Jerks, and you do it alone, I believe.
I,
Is that correct?
I do not do it alone. I do it with a very good friend of yours, Ray Zawadney, a very funny comedian and pal of yours from your hometown. You've known him for years. It is remarkable that you thought I did it alone. It's very, very shocking.
You know what it is, I think, is when I see the clips and I hear the podcast, it feels like you're alone. And that's, I think, and if you've ever talked to Ray, it's like being alone. So that's.
Oh, God, I wish he was here right now just to get so mad at you.
Here's the thing. He will listen up until this point because he knows he'll see that you're on and you're promoting the podcast and he'll go, maybe they'll mention me. That's how vain he is. That he'll listen for I give him the first 5 minutes. He'll be like, if they don't mention me in the first 5 minutes, it's not worth my time. But right now he's listening. He's like, I can't believe they called that. But the podcast is a great concept. It's all about you talk about how you're trying to get better because you're people pleasers, right?
Yes. So the podcast is called The Brand New Jerks. And the whole idea, it's a podcast for recovering people pleasers. Because me and Ray, that's where we're really similar, is we are constantly just trying to make sure people like us all the time.
Right.
So the whole crux of the podcast is to be like, hey, the real thing is like, we wish you were more assertive, but the whole idea is like, hey, we'll become more of jerks. Like how can we be more like assholes? Like
right. Right. I find that is such a common thread, I feel like, with comics, and it leads to so many horrible situations with shows and booking and money. I always how many times do you feel like in your career you've taken a show or said yes to a thing or gone up on a show when maybe you didn't feel like it was the right circumstances because you just didn't want to, like, you were like, I hope they like me and I want them to bring me back.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
And it's not even a good place. A lot of times I feel like it's a place that we shouldn't go back to, but we're so in our heads of like, if they say no, that means it's a reflection of my talent,
100%. I've had that thought a million times while doing this.
Right.
Yeah. Like, especially in the beginning when you're doing, and it pertains to the road, just like hell gig type stuff where it's like, you're letting the hell part of the gig take over because you're like, I have to perform wherever I can. So I'll come back here and let me make sure I placate these people. So instead of just having the wherewithal or the self confidence to go, no, I don't want to come back here. I'll find something else, which I've gotten to in certain aspects. I have done fairly recently. I think with age and with like working on that part of myself, I've done it. But yeah, you're 100% right. The whole idea was like any stage you can find, by any means necessary, but getting on stage. And then even if it's like a really, really bad situation.
Do you find I don't do it much, and I know Ray would probably feel the same way. But do you find that the no is somewhat like liberating when someone says, hey, we got this gig, this is the money, this is how far it is, you in or you out? And it's like, sometimes you just go, it's not worth my time. Do you do you still worry about that after you've said no, or it's out, it's done?
I think no, I don't, because I think I'm realistic enough that I used to say never say no, just like you were saying. I would just say yes to everything. So now the no's I give are very realistic no's. I just had one recently where a guy, it was such a weird, this is also why it becomes such a weird business. The guy, it was from the account of the club. I won't say the name of the club, from the account of the club on Instagram, and with no info, like no name, no nothing. Just somebody wrote, hey, Sean, are you available on April 2nd? No, like, hey, this is Bill. Hey, this is no, nothing. This is the details of the show. Nothing. So I am available. So I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm agreeing. I wrote back and said, yeah, I'm available. And then nothing happened. And then randomly on instant messenger on Facebook, I get another message that's like, hey, the message didn't go. The message, I can't find the message. Are you available April 2nd? And I was like, yes. And I'm like, this must be that same club. But it was from an individual. And then he went, all right. got a show April 2nd, and he tells me the money, and it's way too low. And he goes, I'll need a 45-minute. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm skipping a part. This is one of the best parts about it. Before he even says the details, he goes, do you usually feature or headline? And I was like, oh, man. And it's not even from an ego thing. It's more of a thing of like, if I've been doing this a long time, man, like, and I know all the guys you know. So it's like, yeah, what do you think? There's a couple of different factors, not a thing of like, how dare you not know that who I am by any means, but like, just from like a comic standpoint of like, obviously you got my name from somewhere. So are people recommending you my name and you're not looking up anything or not doing, I don't know, just this weird scenario of going, and I wrote back headline. And then which I just wrote back one word, headline. Normally I would have been like 3 sentences or whatever. And then after that, he was like, okay, it's he throws out the money, and it was way too low. And then I'll need a 45-minute set. These are the 2 other comics. I can get your room if you need it. And I was like, no, but I wrote back, no, but thank you for thinking of me. Yeah. And then he followed it up. I thought I was gonna get a bad reaction back, like a really like terse or a really crappy reaction back. And he wrote back, he was, oh, I understand, and he gave the reason why, because of capacity and stuff like that. But I'm gonna say no, regardless.
Right. Yeah. It's that's a positive outcome of that situation where you don't have to do it and he doesn't get mad. I feel like so many times you as in the comic, put any comic in, says yes because you're like, yeah, we have this in our head of like, if we have an open date on our calendar, we have to just take anything that comes along. Right. And you'd be better off sometimes going to a movie and having a good day,
having a life experience. Yeah.
Right. But we go, I have to have something to promote. I have to put something on my calendar, say yes to this. I do this all the time. I go, I'll just book something else around it. Never do.
Same here. I get the same thing.
Never book anything else. Yeah, I'm driving 8 hours. I'm flying, whatever it is, for a one and done. And then I'm coming home like, oh, nothing came through. That's crazy. Just shocked every time.
Yeah. I think I've always had the intention. I've never set up a run in my life. I always hear about these runs and I go, everybody's like, I do a run here. And I go, yeah. All right, awesome. I'll do a run. And then I just like I just had another guy that I emailed, and like 2 months later writes me back and goes, why? We don't pay for travel. So how would you make that money? And I go, oh, I'll just set up a run in the area. And I'm like, I have no other contacts in the area of this place. Yeah. So I totally get what you're saying. I do the same thing.
Dude, this is maybe a little too inside baseball, but the desperation of sending out the message of like, I know one person in this city, so I'll message them to see who to message, and then it's like, they'll give me 3 people to message and I'll message all 3 of those people. And if one of those people get back to me with some, then I'll take that. And it is just such a thing of like, well, I always do this to go, if I don't have anything by tomorrow at noon, I'll just book the gig as it is and book the flight. And then it's always like, well, maybe someone will message by 12:30. And then it's Thursday, Friday. And then I'm buying a plane ticket the day before I'm going to a show, totally losing money.
100%. I've done that a million times and I never learned my lesson. It's either because of circumstance, like maybe I did reach out and didn't hear back right away, so didn't follow up, or it's because I didn't know anybody and didn't know who to ask in the area to like kind of like work out a better, or because then it's also where you're going, well, then you're going to stay in the one place and you have to move to somebody's house. You have to go to get yourself a hotel. And I'm like, I'm so disorganized. I never do that. I never have the wherewithal to go, okay, let me map out exactly what I need to do with enough time to spare, so I'm not spending a ton of cash. I always just, like you said, go for the one gig I got and I come right back.
Yeah. I was talking to your co-host the other day about a show I did recently. And again, same thing, just like a cannonball run up and back kind of thing. And there is a point, I don't know when it happens, but there is a point, because, if you would have asked me 3 years into comedy, if I was in that same room, I'd be super psyched. I'd be like, this is going to be fun. I'm in a new city. I got some fun local food. I went to the sandwich place that everyone says you got to go to.
Right.
I'm going to listen to podcasts, it's going to be cool. the romance has really died with some of these things. Of like after a certain point, you're like in a dive bar and you're like, what am I doing? Like, what am I insane? Is no one in my life honest with me to tell me that like this is a mistake? Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt that creeps in.
right.
And
Right.
and I'm here to tell you, like, stifling that voice is like what the people who are killing it and then are the ones who they're getting all this stuff, or it seems I think there's a lot of legwork that goes on with those people, and a lot of like confidence in ability, or giving off this positive ray of confidence where they look the part enough where they're picking up this stuff and doing the job. But there's a lot of funny people, but some people just, they kind of take to the idea of like, I'm the shit and you're going to want me at your place. And I've always had the thing of like, hey, if it's not too much trouble, can I do your can I do a comedy on your stage if it's not that big of a deal, please?
Dude, I'm the same way. Just I'm like apologizing. I'll hit up people, anything I need. Podcast, try to get a spot, book a weekend. I am apologizing in the first 2 sentences.
Yes,
like,
same
so
here.
sorry to bother you. Like, I'm closing with like, and if I'll kill myself if it would be better. Like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And I think what we have to realize is like one of the best things I ever heard, and I think we might have even talked about this before in person, me and you, or I don't know if one of the best words of advice I've ever gotten was from Dan St. Germain, who's a good buddy of mine. And he was like, nobody's thinking about you as much as you're thinking about yourself. And also, I think if we have that mindset, we're like, hey, like I think me and Ray have it. That's why we have the podcast, where it's like this idea of, I think we think we're going to get this like really nasty responses from like very basic, not big deal questions. Like, hey, if I could do your show, if you don't mind, like we're so inherently polite with that stuff. Nobody's going to turn around and go, what an a-hole, or what nobody's going to turn around and go, how dare you ask me for this? And if they do, it's probably on them. But there are people in this world that are, I used to run shows, and people, the audacity people have while asking for stuff, or little tiny tricks they do to try to get themselves on thing, is something I would never do. So I think being okay with the idea of like, no, I'm not a bad guy, so I know I'm not going to come off like a bad guy. I think I'm polite enough, and I mean what I'm saying, and I'm not kissing anybody's ass, and I'm just trying to be, like a regular person.
Right. What do you think is like, if we had the equation of like legwork, travel, time put in, expenses to get to a show and put yourself up, versus how much money you actually made? What do you think the biggest disparity is? Like, how much money do you think in time you've put in to go to a show to make, and to the lowest that you've made? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, I've done it before, and I just did it recently with a club that's a really good club. I headlined their supplemental rooms, not the main room, because I don't draw, and I made zero. There was no difference. Maybe I made $20 selling merch that I did one night half-assedly, but yeah, I made pretty much zero. I paid for the flights, and then I lost money, I guess, because food and stuff while you're there. But I will say this. I'll just say what it was. It was the Helium rooms, and it's their secondary rooms. And I did shows at these places, but I get it. Like the comedy club business is a bar business. You want people who are going to draw. But I will say this: the supplemental room for them, even though I didn't make much, the shows were so much better than the other room in that city that I've done in the past, that I was like, yeah, it was worth it. I just had a way better experience than, like, they put me up in a nice place. The audiences were like night and day compared to other clubs.
Yeah, sometimes I guess it's hard. It's hard to take a wash, because you're like, well, I'm supposed to be making a living off of this, and you can't net $0 your whole life,
Right.
But
right.
There is something about like, a lot of it is perception. I feel like, in being able to say, hey, Indianapolis, I'm headlining this room this weekend. People go, whoa, Sean's headlining. We got to get him on this,
Yes.
And then a lot of it too is like, Will I have a good show? Will I get to work on longer stuff? Can I work on new material? They're putting me in a nice place. I'll actually enjoy a weekend, like, God forbid I go have some pleasure in my life and stay in like, a nice place. Like, we're so accustomed to like that not happening. I
Right.
feel like that sometimes you just have to go, well, hey, it's 2 nights in Florida or 2 nights in whatever, and they're giving me a hotel, and I get to, sure, I'll break even, but I get to be outside in the sun and be in a nice place for a couple days.
You're
That
absolutely
might be
right.
worth it.
And what's helped that is, like you said, is the hardest part for me in the past was the am I able to work on new stuff thing, which I've only done recently, because my mentality, I always had this like thing in the back of my head that any kind of road stuff I did, I better be crushing every set that I do there. So the same reason you said earlier in the episode about the whole idea of like, I got to come back to this place. So the only way that's going to happen is that they see me murder the entire, but then what happens is you get so in your head, you're not murdering. I've never met anybody who murders every show. Maybe some guys, but I mean, like, but I don't know. I've never done that ever, but not every show of a weekend. Some are going to be better than others. It's just the nature of the game. But I was always, for a long time, I did the exact thing that worked with nothing new in between, and I wasn't getting better. And then now what I'm still not getting better, but I'll do new stuff. But it's like I'll try to mess like a gig like we just spoke about, those supplemental rooms. I definitely tried new stuff there and tried to mess around and tried to pull out experiences from the shows. But I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. I would have been like, I can have one moment of silence on this stage. But now I have a different mindset.
Sometimes you get to work with a lot of comics and stuff, and like I've featured. I feel like there's not I would be hard pressed to find a comic I haven't featured for at this point in my life. Like
that's good though. A lot of people can't say that. It's a good. Well, realize it's like a good comedy thing.
But you work with these headliners, right? In these main rooms, these big rooms, your big clubs and stuff. And you go, this person is killing it. They must be killing it because they're here and I'm less than them because I'm where I'm at, right? And then you go, in every single, minus like 5 current active headliners in comedy clubs, every single one is the same thing. Thursday, there's like 50 people. It's papered. If there's a Sunday show, it's probably the same. Saturday, one of those shows is going to be really good numbers and everything else is fine. And you go, he says this, everybody's doing the same thing. Like, we're so in our head of like, I stink, I can't draw this and that. And you talk to these people, go, that's cool. You had 50 people here. I wish it was 100. I took out an Instagram ad. Everybody's taking out Instagram ads. Everybody's drawing the same numbers. And it's just like, we're just so in our own heads of like, well, it must be specific to me, but it isn't.
It's not. Yeah. And also that's why the guys who are selling out, that's why you always hear about it, because like it's so hard to sell out. Like,
right.
You have guys like Norman, who is absolutely a lot of the weekends he sells out these days. And you if you're another comic, you're going to hear about it. But I think you're right. We don't think of it. The norm is what you just described, because that's what happens with me. I'll go to a place and it'll be 50 people Thursday. Friday, the later will be less. And then the early show could be packed. And then but never sold out. And then Saturday, you probably have maybe a sellout or two. And then the Sunday show is always 30 people and it's really laid back if there is a Sunday show. So yeah, I think you're right. And I think I kind of knew that, but I think part of my thought process is like, yeah, but I can't like those people, maybe they're making a better case for themselves to the bookers, or maybe they have a better, like you said, perception, but they're being perceived as they draw. And then they don't. It's all the same types of numbers, and until you get to that next level where it's like, oh, we're turning people away at the door, which is like, then you're getting to the people who are doing that are like, then they move on to like theaters and stuff like that. So it's always chasing that carrot,
Yeah, absolutely. What is your least favorite show of a comedy club weekend? You got a Thursday, you got 2 Fridays, 2 Saturdays, and let's throw in a Sunday just for fun.
I will say it has a lot of places have now gotten rid of the Friday late show because it became this legendary, rowdy, just mess of a show that enough people have spoken about that a lot of clubs are like, we're not going to do it to you. Especially
Right.
because a lot of time, like I said, you're not going to, that's where you have less people anyway. So I don't think they care, and maybe they just push the tickets the next day or try to, or whatever it is. But it would have been that, but I haven't had a really, for a while, that was always the worst one, no matter what. Always the worst one. Now what it's becoming is, and don't get me wrong, most places I go, because I'm doing 5 shows, still have the Friday late. What I've noticed is a couple of times recently, the Saturday late has been worse. Saturday late for 2 reasons. One, because it's become more rowdy over time. And also Saturday late because Saturday early is always so good. It's always never comparable to Saturday early. Like Saturday early is the hands down the best show of the weekend. Usually, I've had rough ones, but randomly. But most of the time, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's the better one. But then Saturday late, you're like, it's like almost like pushing out that last little bit of like work energy, because then Sunday, a lot of the time, that's when you do mess around. It's way more mellow and they're way more like well behaved, and it's light and there's way less expectations. It's almost like the job's done and this is kind of gravy. Like it's kind of like you do what you want. So Saturday late, but technically Friday late is still the rowdiest one. Like I think it's still the remnants of that stereotype is still true. Like and that's in the history of me doing the road. Friday late has been the worst, but lately it's been Saturday late. So it's always the late show on Friday, Saturday. Thursday, I've never had that much. I've never hated Thursday because you just get there. So you're kind of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So you're like, hey, I'm up for whatever. And if it's bad, it's bad. But a lot of the time you're not expecting much from Thursday, so it's better. Same thing with Sunday. You're not expecting much, so it ends up being better a lot of time.
That's a great point. Yeah. Sometimes you're just, especially too, if you're flying in or you're traveling, like you're just trying to catch up. You're just trying to like adjust for a second, that you don't even have time sometimes to think about the Thursday show. You're just, the next thing you know, you're at the club, you're going over the set, and then you're on stage. And,
yes.
And so it's always those days where you have time to sit around, where you have time in the condo, you have time to walk around the town, where the more you think about what's going on today, what's going to happen, how are numbers, that kind of thing, it's harder to overcome that, I feel like, with more time.
Well, what's so funny is I would love to be able to draw, and I get why going to the small rooms and headlining those or headlining certain clubs I can't get into. I get that numbers wise, but I will say the structure that I've always had in my career, which rightfully so, was a guarantee. And I think one of the advantages of being that kind of comic is that I'm not responsible for the numbers. Like I'm not, like if I'm doing a door deal, then hey, I'd be worried about what you guys are making as opposed to what I make. But I've gone to clubs. I had a guy once on the road, one of the managers, he walked up to me and he was like, hey, Friday on the Thursday. He's like, Friday early, it's kind of light. And I go, got nothing to do with me. Sorry. You're making my money on the one of the shows of your weekend. So if I'm going to have any advantage in this situation, it's not being worried about selling tickets, because if I was selling tickets, you'd be paying me 10 times, literally 10 times the amount. If you're a sellout, you get paid 20, 30 grand a weekend. I'm not even coming close to that. So the one saving grace I have right here is I don't have to sweat your numbers by any means, but you still want the numbers. You still want people to show up to shows.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to have a good show, and you want to get to the point where you're like, what are we doing with it? How did all these people get here? Then it just becomes the norm. You have a presence on stage. I feel like you were talking about Friday late shows and Saturday late shows being somewhat rowdy and stuff. I've get to watch you and stuff in the city, and you do a great job of sort of interacting with the crowd, but keeping control of the audience. It's such a fine line to walk, but I feel like you have a presence that it almost feels like it could challenge some people to think that, like, is he talking to me? Like one of those kind of things. Like you have sort of like a bigger persona on stage, you're higher energy. I feel like you can do crowd work. Do you feel like you get more hecklers or rowdiness from audiences than maybe other people?
I, 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 You know, that's a really good point, and maybe I need to think about that. Yeah, I've thought that in the past where yeah, probably, but I'm so goofy. Always think the past is that I'm not confrontational
Right.
because I'm so goofy, but I do address them so much. Like I'll do crowd work and I'll do my jokes, but I do address them so much. It's that, yeah, I could see people misconstruing that. And yeah, I've seen me do a set, and then I think two things happen. I think you could be right where it's what you said, where they're like, oh, is he talking to me? What the fuck? And then they're talking back maybe, but also I think that I sound so conversational and I do talk to them so much that they're like, it's okay just to talk here and answer a question that's not being asked of me. So yeah, I think, to be honest, I probably have been, I wish I should probably get rid of that. That'd be better not to do that. And but yes, I think, yeah, but I don't think I ever come off like, I've seen comics that are way more aggressive than me and more. I'm high energy, but I've seen some comics. I'm like, oh, I'm high energy and you're super high energy, like even more so than me. And I'm like, oh, and I've tried to dial it back in the past few. I'm still certain shows. I'll be like, I think when I go on the road, I do it. If I'm trying to pull shit out of people, like, yeah, I do those goofy tricks, but like, yeah, I probably, the way I am probably lends itself to people thinking like we're just talking. Yeah, I think so. But it's actually that's really a challenging question because I don't want that, but it does happen. And I think I always think like I'm not going to have that happen. Then it happens and I get like upset about it. So yeah, that's a good question.
Well, when you do what you're doing and it is conversational, what you get to have is something that feels very live. I feel like something that feels like it's more off the cuff that audiences, I think, tend to like more. And when you're conversational, I feel like audiences, I think I'm sure you've received this compliment where people will come up to you and go, I felt like we were just talking at a bar or something like that. Or you remind me of my friend.
I want to have a beer with you.
Right. Yeah, I want to have a beer, but I think that's actually high praise, because to me, the job of a comedian is to relate to people. And how much more can you relate to people than them going, you remind me of this person in my life because you tell stories like them, or you seem like a friend of mine and we should get a beer. How much more relatable can you be?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, believe me, if I had my way, I would be John Mulaney. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that guy, that's the creme de la creme.
Cocaine addict. Meaning you want more money. We get it.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, I think whatever you are, you appreciate, or you should, if you appreciate the opposite of what you are. So what I do is I always appreciate the opposite of what I do. But I also, the thing about it is, I don't think I'm not myself I am myself on stage.
Right.
Like that is me. That it's amped up. Everybody's amped up versions of themselves on stage, even if it's just a tad bit. Even if you think somebody's. Sometimes it goes the other way, where somebody's more deadpan than they are in real life. That's happened. But there's things that I do within how I am that I don't enjoy, but it works, and I'm better at that side of things. I'm better at the side of things of being like in the moment than I am better at like being completely disciplined and having these, like, I have jokes that are good, but as far as writing these brilliantly written things that I would love to be the case, but I'm so much better at riffing and messing around and talking to people that I'm like, oh, if I can lean into that and make that stronger, that's me more than anything. Like, because I think actually the best comic I think to do it was Patrice O'Neill. And I think that the reason being is because you couldn't tell me with his act what was written, what was riffed, and what was crowd worked. Like if you didn't see it back to back on two shows, you wouldn't know how much he did. So I think now, after a while, I'm trying to achieve the best version of me that I'd be okay with. And I have times when I am okay with it, and I have times when I'm not. I have times when I'm I'm like, I did that because it was easy, like that kind of stuff. But I think that's just part of the thing. I'd love to challenge myself more, which I've been doing more and more recently. But when you do the job part of it, like we have, like where it's like it's the job, I have this weird freaking mindset of like, well, I better go well, so I better go stay with the thing that works instead of being like, I'll do this for me, which I have been doing more lately. So yeah, I think that I don't think it's 100% terrible. I just don't think it's the thing that I want the version of myself that I like and the crowd likes, which I haven't achieved yet, which is just, it takes a while.
Sure, of course. And I think it's always changing. I think it evolves as you change, like sort of what you're reaching for. It can be difficult, I feel like, when you are, if like there are certain comics like a Big J, right? Like he goes up there, he has a very commanding presence. He does crowd work. You're not going to find it. People are going to yell out because they want to be a part of it, but you're not going to find a ton of people that maybe heckle him because it seems like he would put you in your place, that kind of thing. When I feel like if you're more conversational, if you're like you said, you're a little goofier, you're sillier, you seem more endearing. It's hard to correct like a heckler authoritatively and still come back to this thing of like, but I'm your friend, So have you ever had that before of like having to like sort of really put somebody in their place?
I'm good at it.
And then
I'm really good
you
at
are?
it.
What do you do? What do you do to make sure you don't come off as too aggressive?
This is the thing, because that's what I mean about personality wise, is like the goofiness factor. If you're staying within that realm, you can say pretty much whatever you want. I've said really messed up things to people on stage that I can't think of an example, but I've said like things if I was not friendly seeming would have been like if you see me like I'll just get straight up mean and stop the show and make it as awkward as possible if I'm actually mad. And I've only done it a couple times in my life, but like where I'm like, I don't care how this goes, but to get the show back on track, I have no problem staying within the goofy realm, but shutting the person down enough. Like that's the thing. Like I'm better at that, where it's like shutting the person down enough and making fun of them enough, but I might be meaning me. It might be a little bit mean what I'm saying, but if you're having fun with it, I'm having so much fun with it. Nobody's thinking this guy's serious for any second of this. Just how I come off. And that's, at least I have that, like, at least the advantage of like, nobody's going, I've had shows where people like take me seriously and I have to like course correct. But like, I think people know I'm joking around for the most part, just based off my persona. So like I can say something messed up ish, to somebody while keeping the show on track. And then hopefully if they're a normal person and they're embarrassed enough, they shut up. They shut the fuck up. So it's like, but there's been moments, like I had a moment like that in upstate where I full on stopped the show and I was like, see, now you're going to ruin the show, and just berated the person like, just like this. And they'd be like, you're awful. You're an awful, like no jokes, no being silly, no nothing. And then because I'm like, I don't care how this goes, and like you ruined it. And that's like, that'll embolden me more when somebody like steps over the line that way. That happened to me. It happened a couple of times where I had to like stop and be like, nah, now you stop me having fun, and I'm gonna mess with you and make you feel like shit. But that doesn't happen often. But like the other side of it is staying. If I'm staying with I'm having fun. If you're having fun on stage, people will stay on board. Now, if it gets to a point where the guy's uncontrollable, then he leaves. Like it's, hopefully they police the room and they get him out of there. But I've learned how to do that because I talk to them. I talk at them so much and talk to them that I can't get mad if somebody talks to me. That's so hypocritical for me to talk to somebody and goof around with them, maybe make fun of them a little bit, and then turn around the minute they talk back, go, security. Like you can't do that. They think it, like you said, they think it's a conversation. So yeah, but like I said, I have my opinions about what goes on stage when I'm on stage. So
well, it's funny that we're sort of in this era of the clips and the viral crowd work and stuff, and it has really turned a lot of comedians aggressive.
Crowd work comedians,
it
kind of annoys the shit out of me, to be honest.
And I saw I don't know if you know Matt Bergman, very funny comic. He just posted something on Facebook, like a quick joke. It was like, comic just roasted the audience in there. Me, what did they do? Comic, I don't know, paid $25 to support the arts. And that is just so true. Just like people are going up there and they're like, somebody will sneeze and they'll be like, did you sneeze? Are you an idiot? Are you the dumbest person I ever met in my life? Did you kill yourself? And it's like, whoa, dude, like what's like what you know, just this, it's so forced. It's so forced and it's so aggressive that it's like, well, this is uncomfortable for everybody.
Well, that's why yeah, but also okay. So I think the effect of things like even you'll put up crowd work clips now. Everybody puts crowd work clips up now because people are leaning the fuck into it. Like they put up crowd work clips because they don't want to burn material online. And I get that, but also if this was a few years ago, the crowd work would have been thought of like you're saying, where it's like, oh, it's so forced, but that's the reason they're doing it. That's why I'm like, hey, what I try to do if I'll talk to somebody and make fun of them, like the saving grace is that I'm like, I make fun of myself so much that I'm like, I'm just being silly here. I've seen people who don't know how to do it and they do come off like they're just berating somebody. And I think I think everybody can have their moments like that. But yeah, I think that the reason now everybody's trying to farm these clips, so now they're just full on doing so much more crowd work. And what I've been trying to do for the past couple of years is be like, let me try to do less because I'm like, I've already kind of figured out that part. I'm better at that than writing jokes. So I'm like, let me try to, even if I do talk to them, but if I can get to a joke from it, I'd rather that. And that's the goal with me. So if I'm talking to somebody, I make fun of them a little bit. I'll probably go to a self-deprecating joke about myself or something else. I think if you're keeping it friendly, it comes off better than if you're just like you said, where you're like, what are you sneezing? What are you sick? What are you an idiot? Like that. I think people don't know how to deal with people enough where it's like, just don't do it. Just don't do that. Like, just, you're not good at it,
Right. It's so funny just to see like you said, people, you're trying to do more material and, people will come up to you after your show and be like, oh, that was funny when you said this about that lady in the front row. You should do more of that. And it's like, is that what I should do more of? Because I've just been spending every day writing jokes and trying to perfect jokes.
Right.
So
that's why they love, that's why I don't get mad at the audience. Cause a lot of them now, based off the culture, what's going on, you can't get mad at somebody for like shouting out. Well, you can, they shouldn't do it. But if you base things on clips online, if somebody says, no, it's part of the show for me to talk to the comic. If you look at Instagram, it's part of the show. Every comic has crowd work clips. Right. So I'm not going to get mad. It's like, you're right. Like does seem like it's part of stand-up now when it used to not be back in the day where what you're saying is true, where it's like, oh, you mean the stuff that I've been working on, like that I want trying to do jokes and hone my act. I shouldn't work on that. I should do the part where I just made fun of your friend for 30 seconds. Like that's, right. I agree. I think I'm still the mindset where it's like, no, like they'll come up to you. You ever have somebody come up to you and go, I love the bit you did with them when the McDonald's thing you did with that guy. I'm like, that wasn't a bit. You don't know the word bit. You don't know what you're talking about. Like that was just an easy thing to do to fill the time in the middle of me either trying something new or something or getting to a joke at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, talking to people after shows, I appreciate anybody that will come and see me, but sometimes it is brutal. Yeah, it just like, is this like, do you have no social skills? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. Shawnee, before we get out of here, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I've gone beyond the pale with that, where I've gotten into like, I think I might have said this in the last episode, but if I that we did together. I've like almost fought people. Like I used to just kind of placate people and go, okay, thanks for coming. Thank you. But if they say something even slightly rude or anything, I'll just say that was rude. You shouldn't have said that. And I was even on stage once and I was at Gotham and somebody we know hosted. And I have a lot of opinions about hosting because I've done so much of it. I don't do it anymore, but that's my own doing, trying to, get out of that. But, there was the kid was drunk and the crowd was good. The kid came over to the guy who was hosting and the guy who was hosting did it properly. He went up, he did about 2 minutes of crowd work and did rest jokes and he killed and he did the hardest job of the night. And this dude comes over and he goes, dude, that was funny. And the host goes, yeah, thanks, man. He goes, yo, you should do your own set. Like, you should do your own show, like your own thing. And I go, and I was not even on the show. I was just waiting for a friend. And I interject. I go, he just did, didn't he? I go, he did. And he goes, what? I go, did he do jokes? And he goes, yeah. I go, did you laugh? And he goes, yeah. I go, there you go. He did it, right? And he goes, no, you know what I mean. And I go, no, I don't know what you mean. You tell me right now what you mean. I got so mad, dude. I got so cartoonishly freaking mad because I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, what? That's so rude to say to somebody. He did what he was supposed to do. And that's exactly it. But people think they know things more than they do.
Yeah, 100%. People, and because it's to them, it just looks like someone's just up there talking. They go, well, I could chime in on this. You know what I mean? It wouldn't tell your mechanic how to fix your car, but because it seems so casual and so effortless, if it's done well, people go, oh, it was just chit chat. You know, I'm just giving you some pointers. I'm just giving you my opinion. Is that not what we're supposed to do?
100%. And it's so frustrating for comics because it's like we're already in our own head. So to have that added strife is so frustrating.
Before we get out of here, Shawnee, you just did the Tonight Show, which was fantastic, and
thank you.
And it was, you know, it's one of the crown jewels, I feel like, of many comics, and so if you've done the trifecta.
Well, you mean Conan, Late Show, and Tonight Show?
Yeah. Okay, so you've done all three. So think about those moments, right? Those big things where this is what you do this for, right? We these are the reasons why we do this, to have these moments. Now think about a moment where you thought it was going to be that and it wasn't. Like where you were like, this is it. I'm getting it. I can't believe we're finally here. And then it just goes nowhere. Do any of those come to your mind?
Like to that level, or you mean like?
Well, it could be. It's all relative, I feel like.
Yeah, it's all relative. So for me, that was it was actually a really big learning lesson for me. It was an audition for a thing called like New York's Funniest in New York or something like that years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, this is it. This is my moment, and I'm gonna kill this. And I went, and because I listened to so many people, I think that's what affected me. But I was like, I got this. Like I was having, you know, especially when you're doing well in a row for like when I was probably, I don't know, 6 years into comedy, maybe, or 7 years into comedy. And I was like, I'm killing it. I know exactly what this is. It's only 5 minutes. I got this. Whatever. And then it was that audition at Caroline's, and I went up and I just ate it for it was silence for like pretty much. I mean, it may be a couple laughs, but like nothing, like a bomb, like a complete bomb. And then it was like going from the highest highs to like the lowest lows. I was just like, oh, my life is, that's it. I'm done. It was just brutal. But what it really did was it made me realize that I'm not going to listen to everybody about advice about auditioning for stuff or about what you should do, because like we've been talking about, like about the crowd stuff, all that. It's like, it's such a big, giant spectrum of what you're supposed to do comedy. Comedy is not one particular thing. And especially when it comes to auditioning and stuff like that, that you have to just be with whatever the best version of yourself is on stage. Like, it's like whatever you do is strong enough. And if you're getting better, it works out. But like, that was one of those moments I'm like, I'm going to listen to myself a little bit more than like, not doing me wrong. I would take advice from all my comic friends, but I'm saying that like, I was like, oh, my instinct was right. And I screwed myself by getting two in my head, and then I screwed it up.
Man, it's just so, it's so funny because I listened to you tell that story, and I haven't done that, but I've done that. And it's like, you just hear the same. Everybody is having such a similar experience, so different in some ways, but so similar. And like, just that feeling of like, this is it. And then it just you're just eating it. And and it's almost like in the moment you go, is this happening? Like, is this actually going like this? It hits you. And
yeah.
And then when you're done, it really sets in of like, oh, that was bad. I did bad.
Yeah.
And yes. It's tough. It's tough to get through.
And I'll tell you the hardest part about it, and I think a lot of it comes from politeness, is that nobody, for the most part, unless you're close friends that you can take it and they're being good about it, nobody will be like, ooh, like what could serve us the best is when you have moments like that, is somebody going, oof, that was rough. You gotta get the fuck out of here. But like a lot of the time, people will just be like, good job, man. Good job. Because for a couple of reasons, they don't want to deal with awkwardness. So in order to avoid awkwardness, instead of just not saying anything, in order to avoid awkwardness, people will be like, hey, that was funny. That was funny. Like, and you're like, oh, I know. Well, if you're self-aware enough, or you hope to be, you're like, I know you're lying. I know you're 100% lying to me right now. And I've grown to realize that happens, and I've grown to appreciate directness, and be like, people go, even they go, not so good, like that kind of thing. I'd rather that. And it's also like, I think it makes you better as a person and a comic to hear that, and to like in turn, and to kind of like soak it in,
Yeah, it definitely does. And there is, I feel like you have to have a small group of people, comics, in your life that will go, hey, maybe not as you're walking off stage, be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But sort of to pull you aside and be like, what do you think went wrong? Let's talk about,
yes,
you need that. You need
it's
that, because
constructive.
if not, you become a crazy person. And then you just go, I'm either always killing, or I'm always, it's like, there's no way to keep yourself in check.
Yeah.
Shawnee, you got the new pod out, Brand New Jerks, and I assume you're doing most of the work yourself on it. And I wish you well.
Your friend Ray does so much, and he's a great.
I don't know him. You keep talking about.
You're not familiar with Zawadny, Ray Zawadny?
I've not heard of him, but I'll look him up. And I'll see if he's got anything good.
I so want. Can you just cut this out and send it to him on an audio file? And
maybe this will be the clip that we post. This is just we'll just tag him in it. But I appreciate you coming on. You got Brand New Jerks. It's on TikTok. It's on YouTube. It's on. Do you have just your own Instagram page though, right?
Yeah, we just have our own right now, and then we're gonna make one for it pretty soon. But we're trying to share the clips, and then just do it for a while, then grow it, and then make the Instagram page. Yeah.
Well, go listen to Brand New Jerks. And where can people find you specifically?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter. It's at SeanyTime. That's SeanyTime. And my website is SeanDonnellyComedy.com.
Sean Donnelly Comedy. I mean, what a pleasure.
Dude, thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you having.
It's always a blast. And maybe I'll see you for lunch. I'm gonna go get lunch. If you'd like to get lunch with me, we'll get lunch.
We're not far.
We're very close to each other.
All right. I will. I might see you shortly. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Thank you, buddy.